Good evening. The US Senate has confirmed President Donald Trump's nominee to lead the White House Budget Office, Russell Vought, hours after Democrats staged an all-night hearing in the chamber in protest. Described by the Democrats as Trump's most dangerous nominee, Mr. Vought has been a controversial choice due to his role as an author of Project 2025, a hotly debated wish list of conservative priorities for the second Trump administration. Well, tonight we examine different perspectives on both the man and the plan. But first, Benji Hyer reports from Washington, D.C.
Yes, hi, Guy. During his campaign, President Donald Trump repeatedly disavowed Project 2025, but a key architect of that document will now hold a senior position in his administration, with Republican Party senators seeing him over the line with a 53-47 vote. Russell Vought will take charge of a $6.75 trillion budget, what he calls the president's air traffic control system. Democrats have painted him as a danger, a radical with the most extreme agenda, they say. Why do they find him so concerning? Well, he wrote a chapter in that Project 2025 paper, a publication created by one of Washington's most prominent right-wing think tanks, which proposes the entire federal bureaucracy be placed directly under presidential control. He actually held this title back in President Trump's first term, but his appointment this time comes off the back of an almighty overhauling of America's finances, led in particular by Donald Trump's unelected advisor and billionaire businessman Elon Musk, whose so-called Department of Government Efficiency has set about slashing or even totally dismantling multiple agencies by infiltrating the networks of various government bodies. Thousands of federal employees are being encouraged to leave their jobs or forced out altogether. Now, Republicans insist that Elon Musk, the world's richest man, and Russell Vought will be lean, mean, budget-cutting machines. Mr. Vought has also pushed Christian nationalism, that idea that the United States was founded as a Christian nation, that the government should be infused with the religion. In a tweet, he praised God and President Trump, expressing his gratitude to the US Senate and, quote, all the many people who prayed him through. Now, let's go, he writes. Benji Hyer for AnewZ in Washington, D.C.
Let's have a listen now to some strong views on both sides expressed during a long night in the Senate.
Let's talk about Mr. Vought and his plans. Mr. Vought was the lead architect of the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, the blueprint for Trump's dismantling of the federal government. He has spent years crafting plans to circumvent Congress, our Constitution, and of course, the law.
Democrats have spent virtually every minute of the last 30 hours sounding the alarm about the dangers of Russell Vought. We feel it a mission to let America know that Russell Vought is a threat to Social Security, to Medicare, to child care, to veterans benefits, and so much more. He's the wrong man. He seems to care little about the needs of American families. At the wrong place, at powerful OMB, where his decisions will be felt in every corner of the country with the wrong agenda.
Today, we'll vote on the nomination of Russ Vought to be Director of Office of Management and Budget. Mr. Vought served as the OMB Director for much of President Trump's first term, and before that, it was Deputy Director of the same agency. So, he's clearly qualified for this job. My discussions with Mr. Vought focused on the nation's dismal fiscal trajectory, overregulation, congressional oversight, and respect for whistleblowers. With the federal government running a $2 trillion annual deficit, and a national debt approaching $37 trillion, a fiscally sound budget is more important than ever.
I think through the all-night vigil and a lot of the speeches that were made over here, there was a lot of high rhetoric, I would argue, about attacks on democracy, attacks on the Constitution. And I think it's important just when you make those arguments that there be at least some amount of self-reflection. Because over the last 4 years, there have been a lot of times when the executive branch went around the Congress or tried to rewrite the laws that Congress had passed in ways that increased spending.
Protests have also taken place in New York. Let's take a look at some of those pictures now and hear from some of the protesters.
Democracy is under attack. What do we do? Health is under attack. What do we do? Abortion care is under attack. What do we do?
Look at what Elon Musk is doing in the Treasury right now. It's a complete coup by a handful of people who are not elected. Nobody voted for these people. They're subverting our democracy. Me personally, I voted for Harris. And a lot of people were saying that Donald Trump is a fascist. And I didn't want to say that, but looking at it right now, there's no other word to describe it. People are being sent to Guantanamo Bay for being illegal immigrants. It's crazy. I don't think enough people are seeing what's going on. It's scary. It's really scary.
Project 2025 is a fascist program. It is part of a shock and awe campaign by the Trump MAGA regime to disorient people, paralyze them, and consolidate fascist rule. And it must be stopped. It is important that people come out in opposition to the Project 2025, as well as in opposition to the various attacks, like the ICE raids on immigrants, like creating an atmosphere of terror among lesbian, bisexual, gay, transgender people, all the other things. But we need to bring together a movement that can stop this fascism before it gets consolidated.
Well, let's hear now from AnewZ's Oubai Shahbandar in Washington. Oubai, always good to talk to you. Let's start then by looking at some of these very strong views. Lots of these strong views have been expressed on this topic, but what exactly is Project 2025 and who exactly is Russell Vought?
So Russ Vought was just voted by the U.S. Senate to become President Trump's next director for the Office of Management and Budget. This is a very important role that has to be confirmed by the Senate. The Senate vote was largely along party lines. Most of the Democrats voted against Russ Vought, with most of the Republicans, of course, with the Republicans controlling the Senate, voting to confirm President Trump's pick for the OMB. This position, first of all, is extremely important because if you control the budget and the Treasury, you have large control over the massive federal bureaucracy. And Russ Vought has during his confirmation process, has made it very clear that one of his first priorities is to cut down on wasteful spending with a focus on nearly $2 trillion deficit. And that largely also happens to align with the objectives set out by Elon Musk and his Doge team to find waste, fraud, and abuse in a budget with the U.S. federal government that many detractors and those in the incoming Trump administration say has largely gone unchecked over the years, funding a variety of programs that the Trump administration saying is essentially either politically motivated or is essentially going to fund the coffers of corrupt non-governmental organizations with various political connections, with many of them, according to the Doge team and the Trump administration, essentially spending millions of dollars for programs that don't go anywhere and don't advance American interests. So Russ Vought was also happened to be the previous in Trump's first term, the Office of Management and Budget Director. Now the Democrats really tried to delay his nomination for as long as possible, with Democratic senators saying that Russ Vought was part of the Heritage Institute, a major conservative think tank here in Washington, D.C., and Project 2025. What Project 2025 was essentially a massive blueprint that was put together by scholars and think tank officials in the Heritage Institute that largely outlined their view of what a conservative government should look like, and outlining a number of programs that, in the view of the Heritage Institute, needed to be cut or their budget slashed. And that, of course, has brought out a significant concern by Democrats and the center-left opposition to President Trump, saying that Russ Vought is going to slash all these programs. Now, the Trump administration has made it public that they believe there's a variety of programs in the federal government that promote DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, which the Trump administration and their supporters say is unconstitutional. And so the concern by the opposition to President Trump and by leading Democratic lawmakers is that Russ Vought will slash programs in his position as the director of the Office of Management and Budget that have been appropriated funds by Congress. So this really, again, reflects an upcoming fight between the Trump administration and by the Democrats in the Senate and in Congress, where the Democrats say that, hey, any funds that we appropriate as Congress cannot be slashed by the executive office. And with President Trump now having his team has completely solidified with the confirmation vote of Director Vought, which came in the very wee hours in the evening, early in the morning by the Senate. Now that President Trump has his team fully completed, they're fully aligned with this vision of slashing the federal government. Of course, the Democrats in the Senate and Congress have vowed a big fight ahead, and they believe that Project 2025 by the Heritage Institute was essentially a vision that they believe that President Trump wants to put into action, and that has the opposition to President Trump significantly worried. But let's remember, the Republicans have the majority in the Senate and in the House, and that is why we have seen all of President Trump's nominees for senior cabinet officials, including Director Vought of the Office of Management and Budget, being confirmed despite vocal opposition by leading Democratic lawmakers.
So what is Director Vought likely to do? And crucially, what will he do first?
Yeah, as part of the confirmation process, Vought, spoke to senators. So the way that it works is that senators have this great power to either confirm or to vote against confirming a cabinet level nominee by the president. And in that process, those nominees, they sit down with individual senators, where the senators express their concerns and usually like to get either some concessions or promises from the nominees on certain key issues in order to win their vote to confirm. Look, if there's the biggest indicator here of what President Trump's priorities are for slashing in the federal budget have been what's laid out already by the administration. USAID, that is a big one. The U.S. Agency for International Development, as that program, as that department is being brought under the control of the State Department, it's you need the bureaucracy to essentially align with these massive restructuring efforts of the federal government. And that is where the director of the Office of Management and Budget comes in, because it's an issue of knowing how to move funds. It's one thing to say, hey, we want to stop this program from continuing in the future. You need to have control of the Office of Management and Budget in order to ensure those funds are slashed. Now, the Democrats are saying that, well, they're worried that programs like Medicaid, which are medical subsidies for the certain section of the American public, will be hit with President Trump's director for the Office of Management and Budget. He has said that is not going to be the case. They're going to focus on wasteful spending like what we've seen with the USAID. But, what's clear here is that Vought said that he's going to take his direction from the president. And what we do know is that President Trump said that he wants to slash a significant portion of that $2 trillion debt of the U.S. government to bring inflation down under control that he inherited, according to the president, from his predecessor. So it looks like the Democrats are trying to, they view Vought as a threat because, frankly, he's done this job before and he knows how to navigate all these pitfalls. So that, there are concerns that the Department of Education is going to be cut, and we've already seen, and directly from the president, President Trump, saying that he wants to perhaps end that department. And in order for the president to do that, he is going to need to work very closely with his director for the Office of Management and Budget. It is one of the most powerful unelected positions in Washington, D.C. And at the end, he works at the prerogative of the president. President Trump saying, hey, elections have consequences. I was elected by the American people with a mandate. And part of that mandate is to bring government spending under control. And if there's anyone that knows all of the complicated intricacies of the budget of the federal government, it is Director Vought. And that, of course, has Democrats significantly worried, particularly when it comes to programs like foreign aid and education and medical subsidies.
Thank you, Oubai. Well, that is all we have time for on this edition of NewsHour. Please do stay with AnewZ for more news and analysis. And from all of us here in Baku, we wish you a very pleasant evening ahead.